We often like to think that electric cars are a new phenomenon, but that's simply wrong. The first electric four-wheeled EV came out in 1884. By 1900, the Electric Vehicle Company was the largest car manufacturer in the US. By 1909, there were powerful lobbyist groups like the Electric Vehicle Association of America with a huge influence over electricity stations and the government. Electric cars are cheaper to run, easier to drive and quieter than petrol ones, and turned on instantly, unlike steam-powered cars, which needed up to 45 minutes to turn on. What happened? Why did petrol cars take over the world? Why are electric cars suddenly making a comeback 110 years after their previous peak? Well, I've come to Hypercarting, the newest and best electric karting track in Sydney, Australia. Explain. As with most things, we can trace this back to World War I. Despite muscle still powering most transportation during this time, a lot of car manufacturers found their footing from huge government contracts during this war. Renault were making troop transport, and guess what propulsion system they chose for wartime? Did they choose electric cars that needed to be charged overnight and had a range of just 50 miles? Nope. Next, we should also remember the pitiful state of power grids in the early 1900s. America in 1910, for example, less than 10% of households were electrified. If you're a car manufacturer outside of large urban centers like New York or Boston, what's the point in making a car that nobody could use? America's electricity market for households just wasn't a very profitable business, particularly in rural areas. And it wasn't until FDR's New Deal public infrastructure project in 1933 that access to electricity became more widespread, by which time the car industry had already spent decades in bed with petroleum. Speaking about government infrastructure programs, the 1930s became a turning point in the car industry as governments attempted to quickly industrialize. It wasn't just a free market that decided the fate of the future of car propulsion anymore, as governments had a huge role too. When the socialist government of the 1930s Germany sought to produce a car for the people, a certain Adolf was determined that the car of Germany needed to traverse long distances between cities on the new autobahns and travel at 100 kilometers an hour, and thus connecting the newly revitalized Germany together. Electric cars at the time could not do this, so the Volkswagen Beetle would soon be powered by petrol and become the best-selling car of all time. Despite this, electric cars should have still had a viable future in urban centers. Sure, building electricity stations seemed impossible at the time, but so was the building of thousands of petrol stations with underground tanks full of highly flammable liquids. But as petrol cars became much better in the 20s with the invention of starter motors, mufflers and easy-to-use gearboxes, all the advantages of electric cars started to wither away. Let's also remember that electric vehicles were also very difficult to run. There weren't even battery meters. There were no computers to stop you from overcharging. You also needed to maintain the metal plates and liquid levels of lead-acid batteries, which was very dangerous. David Cecilia from the Electric Vehicle Association of America said, "Marketing could not guarantee the economic success of a weak technology." But now, a century later, all these limitations of electric vehicles are pretty much going away. Pretty much everyone in every developed nation are connected to the electricity grid with computers that can control charging. These cars can charge quickly, travel easily between cities, have all the advantages of being cheaper to run than petrol cars. And now we come back to these electric cars from Hypercarting in Sydney, Australia. These cars are so much better than equivalent petroleum ones. They are more powerful with 31 horsepower. They're quiet, they don't produce fume, which would obviously be bad in this indoor venue. They have instant power and are tons of fun to drive. If you want to see me race against my twin brother Davis, hop over to his TikTok channel and comment that Dennis sent you there. Thanks for watching.